Welcome to the Shatterproof Entrepreneur, where we navigate the complexities of financial independence and personal growth. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting Cody Sizemore, a visionary personal and financial coach. And he's here today to tell us about how he blends financial acumen with emotional intelligence. His experience has liberated many from financial burdens, and he's going to share some incredible insights and stories with us today. Cody, welcome to the show.
Hey, man. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So in our pre-chat, you mentioned to me that you're in Toledo, Ohio. Obviously, I'm coming to you from just north of Dallas. I love that I get to connect with people all over the country and the world through the power of podcast. And I thank you for coming on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Can you I gave you a brief introduction, but kind of tell me how you kind of came to be in the financial industry and being a financial coach?
Yeah, man. Well, it's kind of a non-traditional way, I guess you could say. So, if I could just give you like a 30,000 foot view, back about, I would say about 10 years ago now, 8 to 10 years ago, I was actually in the music industry. So I was booking concerts for a living, and I was also in a touring band as well. And, things were going actually like really well for the band. We were touring like all across the country, recording with like multi-platinum record producers, like the whole 9 yards, right?
Wow.
But one thing that kind of stood in my way with it was my own personal finances. I was on the road for probably like 8 months out of the year, just living in a van essentially. And I was living off of like anywhere between $3 to $5 a day. That was like my sweet spot, because all the other money that I had was just going towards like, student loans and credit card bills and all these different types of things.
Mm-hmm.
So, that kind of money, like it was just enough for me to buy like a banana and some cold Chef Boyardee ravioli to just like keep going, And, at first I had embraced that kind of like starving artist kind of lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
But man, eventually it just started to catch up to me. And, there was a night we were on the road, and I think we were in like somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma. And, we rolled into this gas station about 2:30, 3 in the morning to fill up on gas and, just get a snack or whatever. And, I hadn't really eaten a ton that day. So I, pulled out my wallet to see what I could buy. And there was nothing in my wallet, no cash. And I was like, okay, well, how much do I have in my bank account? And I had $1.03 in my bank account. And I was like, I can't keep doing this. I just can't, So, I like had this moment with myself to where everything kind of started to hit me, and the realization came to me, and I was like, I can't keep living like this. I'm 26 years old. I just can't do this.
Yeah.
So unfortunately I had to, come home from that tour and basically tell the guys, hey, I have to take a step back from this. And, it was at that point, man, that I was so upset that money was dictating what I could do with my life, and what at that time what I thought was like my calling, my passion, like all these different types of things. So I kind of took like a super deep dive into this whole personal finance world just to get my own stuff together, and dove hard into that, started making some changes, and things started to come together for me finally for the first time in my life. And once it finally did, and it started affecting like all these different areas of my life, not just my finances, but like my relationships, my career, like everything, I was like, I can't just keep this to myself. Like there's other people out here that have these hopes and have these dreams and have these struggles, and I just can't keep all the riches to me. You know what I mean? Like I got to help other people do this too, so that they can actually live into the things that they're supposed to be living into. So that's when I started, just helping people, for free, just because I wanted to, because they needed help. And then, one thing led to another. And when COVID shut down and I was no longer booking concerts because, everything shut down, concerts didn't exist. I was like, well, I got to do something. So I made the shift and I started my own financial coaching practice, and been doing it ever since. And it's been great. I've been seeing a lot of growth, and been able to help out hundreds of people in a really, really amazing way. And I never thought I'd say this, man, but this financial coaching is way more of a passion and calling than music ever was to me.
Wow.
So, I'm very blessed to be where I'm at, but that's how I got into it, and that's where I kind of come from.
Okay. Wow. So you're in the middle of, of nowhere in Oklahoma, which that's where I grew up,
Okay.
um, with no money. Uh, ha- and that God used that opportunity to get your attention to
He
change
sure did.
your direction.
He sure did. Yeah. And when I was in the middle of it, that wasn't super clear to me.
Hmm.
But, after I got home, and especially now, as I look back on it, um, I think that God puts us through these hard times to, he gives us a message. And I think that, with some of the stuff that I was kind of going down that path with like the band and stuff like that, I think that it was just a wake up call that he needed me to hear, to where he's like, hey, this kind of life is not fruitful for you, and you have another gift that you don't even know anything about, that's going to make way more of an impact. And, you're going to be able to work in my word in so many different ways. And, I see that now. And I'm really glad that he gave me the wake up call for sure.
Yeah. So, what sort of music were you doing?
It was like heavier alternative rock. So,
Okay.
if there's any music buffs out there, I think that the band that we were probably compared to the most was probably a band called Paramore. We had a female lead singer, so anytime that there's a female lead singer in a rock band, it's like Paramore,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
that kind of music. Yep.
Okay. Cool. And you're obviously a believer.
Hmm.
Um, the I just this weekend, my wife and I went and saw Unsung Hero about the Small Bones family,
Yeah.
all about music promotion and making a big pivot. It was very well done. I'd recommend it to anyone to go see it, but it'd be especially relevant to you. They had the jar of money that they pooled together, and Mrs. Smallbones basically tells the family that this is what we have. Our job is to make sure that it never goes away. That
Hmm.
it's going to get smaller, it's going to get bigger. We just can't ever let it go away. And but it did go away, and they had to deal with being in that same spot you were in on that road in Oklahoma, where you have nothing in your pocket, nothing in your bank account, and then it's like, okay, God, now what?
Yeah.
And um, it sounds like he came through big time for you, and which is great for us because now we have someone that actually understands, not just because of their training, what to do with money, but you've been without money and you've dealt with that issue, and now you on the other end to know how to help people manage it.
Hmm.
So, who do you work with? Like, what kind of people do you help?
Yeah. So I help a decent amount of different types of people, but really, like, as far as demographics go, I don't really like to, confine myself to that. So, age range, income, that doesn't really matter to me. What really matters to me is like the type of person that they are. So like the psychographic sides of things.
Hmm.
So, I'm just looking for people who are just, they're tired of being tired. They're driven, they're ready, they're motivated. And they know that, like, they have this potential in them, but they just don't know how to get it out. They've
Okay.
tried this, they've tried that, and nothing seems to work. But they know that they can do it, kind of thing. So, but as far as like, how I do things, and who I really love to serve, and what I like to do with them, I love to help people, get out of debt, build up their savings, start to invest, stuff like that. But I take a little bit of a different approach to it. Like, I'm not just your average like bean counter, like I'm not the guy who's got the spreadsheet and is just a wizard and lives in there all the time. I really think that, like, when it comes to finances, a massive, massive part of it has to do with like what's going on inside your head, with like
Mm.
your mindset, your money mindset, the money psychology side of things, even like the mental and emotional health too. I see a lot of people's, belief systems and what they think about themselves, how they feel about themselves, be very, very tied to their finances, and even the relational side of things. For married couples, it's the number one cause of divorce. So, being able to get those couples on the same page and understanding each other and why each one of them is frustrated, and actually understanding, like, hey, actually these frustrations are actually rooted in love in most cases. it really does help strengthen those marriages, which of course affects not just their marriage, but their entire family, like their
Yeah.
kids and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of that blended into that too. And that's where I see the real magic happen.
So explain to me and the audience, what's the difference between a financial coach
Mhm.
and a financial consultant that we see on every street corner? There's all different kind of brands and independents that are financial consultants. What's the
Yeah.
difference?
Yeah. So, financial consultant, financial advisor, those are the guys who will, basically live in a few worlds. So they'll be focusing on like different investments and handling those for you. So things like, your 401k, a Roth IRA, they might give you some sort of like, or not health insurance. They could do health insurance, but like life insurance, disability
Mm-hmm.
insurance, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they mostly focus on like the numbers, the returns, and the products that they have to offer. And
Okay.
that's where it usually kind of ends. The financial coach, we help with those things. We don't handle those things, but we educate and we point in the right direction. So we work with financial advisors, but we're more in the trenches. So we'll teach people how to budget. We'll kind of help people refine their relationship with money and go a little bit deeper, like see, hey, if you have a spending habit, what triggers those things? Where does that all come from? What are the belief systems around money for you? Um, and, just kind of get deeper into the money psychology side of things so that they have like a really, really good relationship with money, and then develop a plan, so here, if you're trying to get out of debt, we'll set up this way and we'll go here. We're going to do this first, second, third, fourth, and we're going to walk with you on that. We typically meet with people more often versus, maybe like a once a year or once a quarter kind of meeting with the financial advisor. So it's a little bit more in the trenches, and I don't want to say hand holding, but it's definitely more involved in the sense of like, we have a more intimate relationship with our clients, I'd say.
How often do you meet with your client on average?
Yeah, it kind of depends on the structure. I have a few different types of programs, but I would say it's usually anywhere between as little as once a month to as often as once or twice a week, even. Just kind of depends on the program and what they're trying to accomplish and what they're looking for.
Okay. And I'm the subscription lawyer, and so I do all of my legal coaching through our
Mhm.
subscription plan. Do you work on monthly retainers and subscription, or do you work by the hour?
Yeah, so I work by the program. So basically, like, hey, like
Flat
the
fees.
program is going to be like this much of an investment. There
Mm-hmm.
is no like, like rate or like hourly rate. Like I'll put in as many hours as I need to with you. Um, and there's no percentage thing. So like if I'm helping someone get into
Yeah.
real estate investing, for
Mm-hmm.
example, I'm not going to take a percentage off of their, their investment or anything
Gotcha.
like that. It's just a flat kind of investment. And if they go through that program and they want to keep going because they like the value and they like the support, then
Mm-hmm.
cool. We can do like a maintenance program, and typically what I do is I just give them like a much lower kind of a rate because it's more of like a passion project for me at that point because I really loved working with you,
Mm-hmm.
and it's beneficial for all parties. So that's really important to me. Is like anytime that you're going to pay someone to help you with your money, you want to make sure that it's going to be beneficial for you and that you get that quick return on investment, but also be something that's you're going to take it seriously as well. So because that's really important too, that you actually like put in the work and do what's required, and that way you get those results.
Hey there, it's Scott Reed, cutting in for a quick moment. If you're enjoying the podcast and finding value in our discussions, you're going to love the Access Plan. It's designed for entrepreneurs like you, offering unlimited legal advice without the worry of high hourly fees. With the Access Plan, you can get the legal support you need at a flat monthly rate so you can focus on growing your business with confidence. Head over to reblaw.com/access to learn more and join Access now and get busy shatterproofing your business. Now let's get back to our amazing guest. Well, tell me, how does your faith influence your approach to financial coaching and decision making with clients?
Yeah. So there's a few levels to that. Number one is that like you know with my story and how I kind of got into this, the thing that kind of really destroyed me was the level of debt that I had. And, once I started taking more of like a deeper dive into, the word and scripture, and in particular with like, Proverbs and stuff like that, it was very clear what God instructs about, debt in general. And he
Yeah.
doesn't like it. So, that's a big part of it, is that like, I think that just handling money in God's way is what's going to bring you the most peace, and also probably the most, fruit as well. Um, so that's a big part of it too, is just being a good steward, and teaching people to also be good stewards, and passing down that wisdom to not just their family, but then their kids, and all the people they can impact in their own community as well. So that is like an underlying tone in there. But I also think that a really big thing for me, one of my core values, is integrity. And especially with like this industry, like there's just a lot of cynicism in this
Hmm.
industry. And if you come to people and you're honest with them, and you show your best intentions with them, and you communicate with them that like, hey, this may be what someone might be suggesting, but here's the real intention behind this, and it might work in the short term but not in the long term, kind of thing. That's really important to me, is just being fully in integrity, and just keeping like my view and my relationship with God at the center of that, because it's a service-based industry,
Hmm.
and I want people to feel God through me, and the way that I talk to them, the way that I, serve them, and even the way that I, deliver for them as well. Um, and I will tell you, Scott, there's been a few times where I had a couple clients with me that, were not believers at first.
Hmm.
And, we started working together, and, they went through my initial program, they kept going, and they just knew that I was a person of faith. And just naturally, with having a good experience with me, and how I was kind of conducting the practice and the business, they started asking questions. There's one guy in particular, he uh he approached me, and he's like, "Hey dude, like the finances are in a great spot. My job's in a great spot. Um Everything's great. And I don't really have much to complain about, but for some reason I still don't feel fulfilled. And I know that you are a man of faith, and I've never really explored that before." And he's, in his mid 30s. And he's like, "Would you mind meeting for coffee and just talking about that?" And I was like, "Absolutely, man."
Hmm.
So, I met him for coffee, and we sat there for almost 2 hours. And he was just asking me questions about faith and God and all these different types of things. And one thing led to another. And, he actually asked me if he could go to church with me. And I was like, "Absolutely,
You
dude."
bet.
So he's been going to church with me for about the last year. And about 2 weeks ago, he signed up for his baptism, which is
Wow.
awesome. And
That
that would
is
have never
amazing.
have happened if we didn't cross paths with just this, this financial coaching thing. So just, that's just one example. But I think it's cool that God can speak to people through different vehicles, that isn't just like directly in your face. Sometimes it's just being around that environment, and just seeing how people carry themselves and how they conduct their business. Um, it can open people's eyes, and it can start to have them ask questions, which is great.
Yes. Sunday I was at Gateway Church in Grapevine, Texas, and Joyce Meyer was speaking, and she said that you'll never be able to talk someone into accepting Jesus,
Yeah.
but you can always love them into accepting Jesus.
Hmm.
And so the way you conduct yourself and the way you interact with people, we're called to love everybody, and especially those that we're dealing with one-to-one through coaching. And that's so powerful. I think a lot of people miss out on that ministry field. They're so focused on the business aspect of it, and they forget that the people that are on the other side of the camera or the desk or table, they need someone to love them, because they may very well not have anyone that actually shows them real unconditional love. And obviously you do that in your coaching, and man, what a blessing that is to then be able to see someone come through that, ask you for guidance there, and then follow you to church, and then follow you to Christ. That's
Yeah.
That's what it's all
And I
about.
completely agree with that statement of like, you can't tell someone about Jesus and expect them to come to it. Like they have to, they have to feel him, and they have to
Mhm.
see him, kind of thing. Um, I'm an elder at my church as well. I've been an elder for the last 2 years, going on 3.
Mhm.
And, you know, that's just one thing that I've even just noticed in my own personal life too. I'm a relatively younger guy. I'm in my 30s.
Yeah.
And I come from the music scene, so the music scene it's not necessarily like the most popular space for Jesus,
Yeah.
depending on
Mhm.
what scene you're in.
Yep.
So, when I'm out there and I'm just casually talking about my faith, like there are some people who are like cool with it. And then there's people who give me some pushback. And, those people, I don't push back on them. I just say, hey, like, sorry you feel that way, but I'm going to keep going. And, if you ever need anyone to talk to, just let me know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing, like sometimes it takes years for people to start asking questions and to start feeling that. And that's okay. I think it's better to be later than never. So it's a really, really important thing. And, just people of faith, such as yourself and myself, just keeping that strong, firm conviction, and just doing what you know is right, and living the way that you know is right too, consistently, it will turn heads and it will have
Mhm.
people start to ask questions, which is great.
Yeah. People are watching. They too often see Christians not do what they say they're supposed to, or not act like Jesus,
Hmm.
and so they're watching to see if you will,
Hmm.
and if you do on a consistent basis, and it, yeah, it makes a big difference. Well, so tell me about your podcast, the Financial Coaches Podcast, and what drove you to start it.
Yeah. So that podcast is not directly for like my core audience,
Yeah.
as far as like who I serve, but it's more so a podcast for aspiring financial coaches, for financial coaches who are, serving people, but they're wanting to grow and expand their practice and impact more people, stuff like that. So the reason I started it was because I was talking to, a friend of mine who's also a financial coach, and she's based in Arizona. And I was just casually talking to her, and I was like, yeah, like I just can't find any sort of podcast specifically for financial coaches. And she jokingly said, well, why don't you just start one?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, but only if you do it with me. And she was like, oh man, what did I just walk myself into? you know? So, it started as a joke, but then we said, hey, well, I mean, why not? Like, why not? If it's not out there and we want it, then why don't we just provide it? You know? So that's how it started. And that was about 2 years ago. And, we throw out an episode every week, and it's been great. So yeah, we take those opportunities to just talk about what we have going on in our own practices. And one thing that I really, really love and appreciate about being the host of that show is that it actually makes me a better coach, because every week I'm talking to this like rock star of a financial coach. And she used to be a psychologist, so she has that background too. And just getting her takes on things, and her challenging me, and me challenging her on certain topics and stuff, like it's iron sharpens iron, kind of thing. And so I get a lot out of the show just by hosting it, as well. So it's been a big blessing for me, and I'm sure it's been very valuable to other people as well.
How long have you been doing that show?
About 2 years. It'll be 2 year. Oh wait, yeah, it'll be 2 years in September.
Wow, congratulations. That's a long run. My understanding is that if you do more than 20 episodes, you're in the top 1% of all podcasters. So
All
you've
right.
you've eclipsed it. Most people start them and don't get beyond 2 episodes and quit for
Yeah,
one reason or another.
yeah,
So, but which brings me to something I see in your background. You are no stranger to doing something hard, or you wouldn't have 75 hard displayed behind you.
that's right. That's right. And actually, I'm currently on the program. You can see my gallon of
Okay.
water right here.
Okay.
But yeah, that was something that was a major, major, major shift in my life too, like in a big, big way.
Yeah.
Big way.
So let's kind of let's pivot a little bit. I completed 75 hard. I started December 26th and completed
Awesome.
it for my first time. If you're listening and haven't heard of it, 75 hard is what I would call a discipline program. It's not a diet. It's not a workout program, although it has those components in it, but you have 75 days to do very specific behaviors over and over again. And I thought I could never do it. I'd seen friends do it, and I was very in awe of them. I couldn't figure out how I could ever do that with my schedule. My college age son, Luke, who you talked to, he's my producer and does pre-interviews. He and his friends were going to do it. And they were talking about it right before Christmas. And I'm like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And so we jumped in. None of them finished it. But I got hooked and I made it through, and it was a really good experience doing it. I will say at the end, I finished it April 9th in Atlanta while I was speaking at a conference. The end was kind of anticlimactic. I'm at 9 o'clock doing my second workout of the day. You do 2 45-minute workouts. My second one was indoors. I finished it. There's no one else in the gym but me. I look around. I'm done. I did my 75 hard.
Yep.
And so that was kind of a little deflating for me, I will say, but I had accomplished it. So how many times have you done this?
Yeah, I have done it. So I do the Live Hard year. So I don't know if you're aware of that, but like there's different phases and stuff like that. Yeah. So I've done the Live Hard year 2 times. I'm on my 3rd time right now. So as of this very moment, I'm on day 67 of an extra round of 75 hard during the Live Hard year. Okay. And then I have a 12-day break before I start phase 3, which is the final phase. So I'll be coming up on my 3rd time completing it pretty soon here. So
what led you to start 75 hard?
That's a good question. So about 3 years ago now, actually, I was met with a pretty pivotal place in my life. It was 2021, fresh out of COVID, just started this business. I actually got let go from my job, and I was kind of met with a decision. I was like, well, do I go full force into the business, or do I go get another job at like Home Depot that I had a job offer of? Mm-hmm. And I decided to go with the business. And during that time too, I was at like my heaviest weight. So I'm not a very tall guy. I'm like 5'7", and back then I was 5'7", pushing 260. So I was a big boy. Yeah. And at that point, my wife came to me and she goes, "Hey, just so you know, we're pregnant." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then like a couple months later, she comes to me again and she goes, "Do you want to know what the gender is?" And I said, "Absolutely. Sure. It's my first kid." And she goes, "Okay." So we figured it out. And then a couple of days later, she goes, "Hey, we're going to have a boy." And I was like, wow, okay, awesome. This is great. And then I had a moment with myself, Scott, where I was like, I'm going to be having a boy, and the boy's going to be looking to me, and this is what he's going to see. Mm-hmm. This is the example that he's going to see. Yep. And I was severely unhappy with myself, and I just knew, I was like, I could not put that on him, So I struggled with my weight my entire life, did the yo-yo thing, and I figured it out. I was like, what was the issue? Why am I always losing weight and gaining it back and then more, and then losing weight, gaining it back and more? And I figured out that like mentally, I was just very weak. I was very weak. And then I found this program, which is, it's sold as like, a mental toughness program. And I was like, that's what I need, So I jumped into it. And, I finished those first 75 days, had a completely huge turnaround in my life, physically, mentally, career-wise, because I started to lean into the coaching more and it started to take off. I was happier. My relationships improved. Literally everything just improved. And then I was like, well, why stop? Like, I'm going to go on to phase 1, and I just kept going and going and going. And every time I did it, I always felt like I was at my best when I was on the program. And since then, I'm 100 pounds down, and I've kept it off, and I've never lost that much weight. I've never kept it off for this long of amount of time. So I'm very, very grateful for this program. And the best part of it is that it's free, like you don't need to pay for it. But I do want to speak to one thing that you said about the ending for you, about how it was kind of like, I don't know if unfulfilling was the right word, but you had mentioned it was like
It was just
anticlimactic. That's what it was. Yes, anticlimactic. I almost think that that's how it's supposed to be, because if it's a mental toughness program or a discipline program, as you had talked about, it's not about getting that big dopamine rush and reward. It's about completing the task and then moving forward from there, and keeping the ball rolling. So I found it interesting that you said that you experienced that, because I was kind of the same way. Day 76, on the first time, I was like, well, now what? Like I climbed the mountain. Now what?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, well, now I got to find a higher mountain to climb. And that's why I kept going and doing all those different types of things. And that's what really taught me that lesson, is like, hey, it's not about the destination. It's about really embracing that journey as well. And that's something that I have learned and that I've brought into even like my coaching, so people are trying to get out of debt. And I always tell people, I'm like, it's not about being debt free. It's about who you become, why you're doing it, and the whole process of getting there. That's what it's really about. And you'll get there. You'll get there. If you focus on just today and like who you are today and why you're doing it today, you will get to the end of the road. But it's not going to be a finish line. It'll just be a new starting line to something really, really exciting for you.
Yeah. I wanted people to come out with confetti and horns, and I wanted the celebration, which didn't happen. But it was a great experience. My experience, like yours, when I got a wake up call, was my boys were in elementary school, and my wife hates it when I tell this story, but I think it's in my book. But one day she walked up to me and kind of poked at my stomach and said, "That kind of looks like it hurts." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm body dysmorphic. I think I always look good." And so we had to. I got to looking at it, and I went and got on the scale. I don't get on scales, and I'm 6'1", and I weighed 242, and had always when we met was 185. I was always around 200 pounds. And suddenly I was at 242, and it was a year and a half after I'd started my law firm. And I was either working or spending time with my family. I was very busy and eating whatever I could find. And so I gained a lot of weight. And so it was a wake up call for me. And so I joined a gym, went to Weight Watchers, and set some 90-day goals, and over 90 days got my body back under control and set some new habits that have kept me. I will occasionally gain some weight, but it's kept me in a more healthy place. And then when I started 75 Hard, I was already working out 5 days a week. And so it was just adding the extra workout and then adding to the weekends. I'm 55, and I got tired. It's not for sissies, because I was in pretty good shape, and it still was a lot to do. Especially I've put on quite a bit of muscle in the last few years, and so it doesn't matter whether you're carrying fat or carrying muscle. Your joints still don't appreciate you walking 2.5 miles every night. So it was. If you're listening, I highly encourage you to look at it for whoever reason serves you best in your life. You'll learn a ton about yourself and what you can actually do, and it makes the rest of life seem much more doable, just because you've completed that 75 days. And then, yes, you can go on and do what Cody's doing for sure. There's lots more to it. And I've got a lot of friends that do it, are in living that 75 Hard life. It's a great life. Anyway, so just because that's sitting behind Cody, I had to bring that up. I think it fits so well with what you do, because it's so much about mindset and discipline. And heck, you should probably create a 75 Hard financial program that people go through. because
I've actually considered it. I'm like, how can I blend these two worlds together?
Mhm.
Because dude, it did change my life in so many ways.
Yeah.
And I do believe that like someone's finances are really, really tied into even like their health, big time, you
Oh
know?
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I've considered it. I just haven't put the pieces together yet. So,
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. Um, where should people go to connect with you, Cody?
yeah. So I think that the best way to just learn a little bit more about me and my style and what I might actually be able to do to serve you, is I actually offer a free webinar. So it's like a 45-minute presentation, and it's just titled "Master Your Money: 5 Simple Shifts to Rapidly Eliminate Your Debt and Amplify Your Wealth." So you can find that. It's free to sign up and watch that. And you can find that at masteryourmoney.support. Not .com, but .support, because that's what we're trying to give you. So
Yeah. Okay. So that'll be in the show notes. So please take advantage of that free offer, and thank you for doing that. It's very generous
mhm.
and great value. I really want to thank you again for coming on the show and giving us some of your insights and some background on how you've gotten where you are, because the journey is so important and it can be inspiring to other entrepreneurs that are trying to do their thing, and it can be encouraged that you were able to pivot and then build a completely different business than you would have thought you would have had 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say thank you for, having me on. It was a lot of fun, and I'm glad that we got into, this guy right here, the 75 hard stuff,
Yeah.
because it's a really big part of my whole journey, but I also think, it affects so many different ways, So it was a lot of fun. So thanks, Scott.
Yeah. And reach out to either of us if you have questions about 75 hard. We'd be glad to share it with you, but there's plenty of information out there. We can even drop something in the show notes about 75hard.com so you can go find it and learn about it. I encourage you to do it. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. Cody, as I do, I want to give you a blessing. May you be blessed in all your endeavors. May you be prosperous in every aspect of your life. May your path be enlightened with wisdom, health, and fulfillment. May your work not only achieve success, but create an unbreakable business legacy. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this show and found value in the conversation I've had with Cody, please like and subscribe. Until next week, stay Shatterproof. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as professional advice. While I'm your host, Scott Reed, and a lawyer, I'm not your lawyer, and this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship. The views expressed by my guests are their own and not mine, and they may not even reflect the opinion of the Shatterproof Entrepreneur Podcast. So we strive to provide valuable and accurate content, but we make no representations as to the accuracy, completeness, or suitability of any information to your particular situation, and won't be liable for any errors or omissions for the application of them. Always consult a professional or in the respective area that we've discussed before making any personal or business decisions.